Laura Farris.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it's a privilege to follow my honourable friend, the member for Watford, and so many thoughtful contributions tonight. I'm going to confine my comments to new clauses 28 and 45 to 50, and specifically the way in which those clauses intersect with the impact that online pornography is having on children in this country. Mr Deputy Speaker, there has been no other time in the history of humanity when we have exposed children to the violent, abusive, sexually explicit material that they currently encounter online. In 2008, only 14% of children under 13 had viewed pornography. By 2011, 3 years later, that figure had risen to 49%, correlating with the rise in children owning smartphones. Online pornography has a uniquely pernicious impact on children, on very young children in seeing just the content itself, but in older teenagers on the impact on their behaviour. We're seeing more and more evidence of boys exhibiting sexually aggressive behaviour, actions like strangulation that we've dealt with separately in this House, and also misogynistic attitudes, and young girls conditioned into thinking that their value depends on being submissive or objectified, and that is actually leading children down a pathway to serious sexual offending by children to children, where the victims are overwhelmingly young girls. You don't need to take my word for it. After Everyone's Invited began documenting the nature and extent of sexual experience that was happening in our schools, an Ofsted review revealed that the most prevalent victims of serious sexual assaults amongst the under 25s are girls aged 15 to 17. In a recent publication in anticipation of this bill, the Children's Commissioner cited the example of a teenage boy who was arrested for his part in a gang rape of a 14-year-old girl, and in his witness statement to the police he said it felt just like a porn film. Dr. John Fubert, the former White House advisor on rape prevention, says this: "It wasn't until 10 years ago that I came to the realisation that the secret ingredient in the recipe for rape was not a secret at all. It is today's high-speed internet pornography." And these views have been expressed in one form or another by the Chief Medical Officer for England and Wales, the Independent Inquiry for Child Sexual Abuse, the Government Equalities Officer, the Children's Commissioner, Ofsted, and successive government ministers. So, new clause 28 requests an advocacy body to represent the interests of child users and the protection of these interests. And I have to say, I do welcome certainly the principle of that. Now, I anticipate that the Minister is probably going to say that he's already gone halfway there by making the Children's Commissioner a statutory consultee to Ofcom, along with the Domestic Abuse Commissioner and other people who've been named in this debate earlier. But it seems to me that whatever the government makes of the opposition's new clause, surely it must agree that it alights on one important point, that the online terrain in respect of child protection is evolving very fast. By the time this bill reaches the statute book, new providers will have popped up again, and with that, unforeseen problems. The point that's been made by my honourable friend, the member for Watford, just a moment ago, is that when this bill was first introduced to Parliament, TikTok did not even exist, nor did OnlyFans, and that is precisely the kind of user-generated site that's likely to try and dodge its obligations to keep children safe from harm, partly because I don't think it even accepts that it does expose them to harm. It relies on the fallacy that the user is in control, and it operates an exploitative business model which is predicated on that false premise. I also think it's important to have somebody representing the issue of child protection on a regular basis because of the issue of age verification, which we've canvassed quite lightly across this debate. But the point has been made by members across the House that the current system, which allows children to self-certify their date of birth, is hopelessly out of date. I know that ministers envisage something much more ambitious with this bill's age assurance and age verification requirements, including facial recognition technology. but I think it's certainly worth having a constant voice reporting on the adequacy of whatever age assurance steps internet providers put in place, because we know how skillful children can be in navigating the internet. We know that there are those who have the technological skills to IP shroud or to use VPN, and I think that you need a voice commenting on that all the way through. And thirdly, I think it's also important to have a voice keeping up the pressure on the government, which I want to do myself tonight, for an official government inquiry into pornography harms, one that is akin to the one that was undertaken on gambling harms in 2019, that was incredibly important in identifying all the harm that was caused, and in an equivalent case with pornography, that its conclusions would leave no wriggle room for user-generated services to deny the risk of harm. I wanted to address my right honourable friend, the member for Basingstoke's new clauses 45 to 50, and she has made the point very sensibly that this really just builds on everything that has been recommended by the Law Commission. It aligns with so much work that's already happened in this House in the Domestic Abuse Act, on revenge porn, whether it's threatened or actual, whether it's genuine or fake, and the issue of coercive control. And many members recognise all that from our work a couple of years ago. But what I wanted to ask ministers, since they have indicated that they're minded to accept these amendments in some form or another, I wanted to ask them to explain to the House how they think this will capture the issue of sexting, if indeed it will capture the issue at all. Everything that I have found on the issue of sexting, which, as the Minister will know, is when typically children exchange intimate images, sometimes on a nominally consensual basis. Everything that I've read about this issue deals with the fact that, yes, prima facie it's an unlawful act, but no, we don't seek to criminalise children. We recognise they make errors of judgment. But I do think that whilst it may be proportionate that children aren't criminalised for doing this, it remains the case that when an image is sent with the nominal consent of the child, and it's nearly always a girl, this is often a product of duress. The image is often circulated much more widely than the recipient, and often has devastating personal consequences on that young girl. And the reality is, all of the main internet providers now have the technology in place that can identify a nude image. It would be possible to require them to prevent nude images being shared where they know, and we know they're going to have extended age verification abilities, where they know that the user is a child. And if they are minded to accept new clauses 45 to 50, I'd like them to address that specific issue of sexting and not simply let it go by the wayside as something separate or outside the ambit of this bill. Thank you.